This video will show how to splice two ends of a rope, both of which have hardware on them. I do this routinely when making tree swings. Today I'll be splicing ropes that will be used for a V-shaped swing suspended between the trunks of two trees. Two equal length ropes will be anchored on the trunks of two trees. A 5/8 inch diameter anchor bolt will go all the way through the trunks, and there's an anchor shackle that connects the eye bolt to an eye splice in the rope formed around a galvanized thimble. The splice at the top of the rope is a triple tuck eye splice, and there's also a splice at the bottom of the rope, which is called a locking brummel splice. Down here there's a rigging ring that attaches the two ropes together. A locking carabiner goes on the ring, and the swing seat will be attached to that. The other rope is identical. This setup requires two different kinds of splices. The first is the locking brummel. It is done first because a locking brummel requires two free ends of the rope. I like to put the locking brummel closer to the ground where people might be able to reach it, because it is less likely that a curious person could undo a locking brummel. The triple tuck eye splice can be done with only one open end of the rope. It requires a longer tail to achieve the same strength and stability as a locking brummel, since there is not a locking step. It is also easier to undo a triple tuck eye splice, and this is a good reason to keep this splice out of reach of the swing users. Both splices retain more than 90% of the rope's strength. In contrast, knots can decrease the strength of a rope by 50%, not to mention they are bulky and harder to get exactly where you want them to be. The process that I'm going to be showing you and the measurements I'm going to be describing are specifically for 5/8 inch diameter Tenex TEC 12 strand hollow braid twin carrier polyester rope made by Samson Ropes. Every different kind of rope and rope construction is going to have a different splice, so this video is specific to 5/8 inch Tenex TEC. The rigging ring is a forged rigging ring, meaning there is no weld, and it has a 3,375 pound working load limit. The ropes have an 18,000 pound breaking strength, which equates to a roughly 2,000 pound working load limit. The anchor shackles that connect the top splice to the shoulder eye bolts also have a working load limit of 2,000 pounds. The forged shoulder eye bolt has a working load limit of 5,200 pounds, and the stainless steel pear-shaped quick links that connect the ropes to the rigging ring have a 2,400 pound working load limit. The thimbles are specific for 5/8 inch textile rope or wire rope. All the hardware is either stainless steel or galvanized. The items you'll need to splice the ropes for a V-swing include 2 anchor shackles, 4 thimbles, 2 pear-shaped quick links, a forged rigging ring, some sort of carabiner to attach the tree swing to, a tape measure, 2 different sized fids. I just use PEX tubing for the fids. The blue fid is 1/2 inch PEX tubing, and the red fid is 3/4 inch diameter PEX tubing. You can just buy those at Lowe's or Home Depot. You'll also need a Sharpie, electrical tape, and a pair of sharp scissors. I like these Whisk titanium coated scissors that cost $14 at Home Depot. I can make about 200 splices before they get dull. First, we're going to do the locking brummel. The locking brummel requires a 30-inch tail, so I make a mark 30 inches from the end of the rope. That's where the thimble is going to go. As I mentioned before, I like to put the locking brummel at the bottom of the V-swing, so this eye splice is going to hold a pear-shaped quick link and a rigging ring. Keep the mark right at the bottom of the thimble. Pull the rope nice and tight. Then you're going to insert the short end of the rope through the long end of the rope using the 3/4 inch fid. I'm going to put it directly through the middle of the rope with 6 twin carrier strands on each side of the fid. Push the end of the rope into the fid, pull the fid through, and then pull the rope tightly around the thimble. Now to make the lock, we need to insert the long end of the rope through the short end. Each V-shaped pair of strands is called a pick, and I'm going to insert the 3/4 inch fid through the short end of the rope 2 picks down from the first pass. Insert the long end of the rope through, and then pull the entire length of rope through. As you get close to the end of the rope, make sure there are no kinks in the piece that you're pulling through. Now you can pull everything tight, and that's your locking brummel. Next we have to bury the tail, and the first step in that process is to taper the end. That is done by starting about 2 picks up from the end and marking 2 pairs of strands. Now you go 2 more picks beyond that mark, then 3 more picks beyond that mark, and 4 more picks beyond that mark, followed by a final 4 more. So your first mark is about 2 picks from the end. That distance is not as important as the ones after it, but once you mark the 0 point, then you're going to mark picks at 2, 3, 4, 4. Take your scissors and cut through each of the strands that you've marked. Then, starting with the longest strands, you're going to pull out all the strands. After you've pulled everything out, you should have only 4 strands left. 1, 2, 3, 4. To bury the tail, you're going to take the smaller 1/2 inch PEX fid and insert your tapered end as far as you can into the fid. And then use your electrical tape to tape around the rope and then on down around the fid. Making sure that there are a few wraps where the tape is only stuck to the fid to give a good connection. Now you're going to choose a point about 2 picks down from the last pass and insert the fid into the center of the rope. Then you feed the fid through the middle of the rope until you get to a point where the final loop is about 2 inches from the rope. Or in other words, a total length of that loop is about 4 inches. At that point, you're going to exit the center of the rope and pull tight so that all the rope is bunched up near the thimble. Pulling tightly at this step is very important. Now you can take off the tape and remove your fid. Now in order to get the tail back inside the rope, you pull down on the taper zone starting at the thimble moving downward. Now we have our locking brummel splice on one end of the rope. Alright, now we're going to do the triple tuck eye splice on the other end of the rope. The tail of the triple tuck eye splice is 42 inches long. So I make a mark at 42 inches in from the end. Then, starting at the 42-inch mark, roll the thimble along the rope until you get to the other side of the thimble, and then put a mark at that point. Those two marks represent the placement of the thimble on the rope. The triple tuck eye splice is called a triple tuck eye splice because the tail passes through the rope 3 times, and that area where it passes through needs to be 14 inches long for 5/8 inch Tenex TEC rope. I'm going to divide that 14-inch segment evenly into 3 segments. So second pass, third pass, and then the fid is going to enter at the 3rd mark to start the berry. 42 inches in from the last mark, we will mark the exit point for the berry. Different from the locking brummel, for the triple tuck eye splice we're going to taper the end before we do any passes. The taper is different for a triple tuck eye splice because the tail is longer. So you're going to start about 5 picks from the end and mark 2 pairs. That's going to be your 0 point. Then you're going to count 5 more picks up and mark the 5th pair. And do that 4 more times. So 1, 2, 3, 4 and mark. 1, 2, 3, 4 and mark. 1, 2, 3, 4 and mark. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 taper points, each spaced by 4 unmarked strands, and the 5th strand is the one that gets marked and cut. I prefer to start at the longest strands and pull them all out. Just like the locking brummel, at the end you should be left with only 4 strands. And there they are, 1, 2, 3, 4. In the triple tuck eye splice, we're going to be passing the tapered end through the rope 3 times, so it helps to stabilize the top 3 taper points. I just do that by taping 2 times around each of those 3 locations with electrical tape. Now we're going to use the blue 1/2 inch PEX tube again. Insert the tapered end of the rope in as far as you can. Incidentally, these fids are about 1 foot long, 13 inches to be exact. The way I made these is to buy an 8-foot section of PEX and then cut it off at the slightest angle possible with a hacksaw. Then, to make sure that it's nice and smooth and doesn't get stuck as you're doing your berry, you can use a file or sandpaper to remove any burrs. I like to cut both ends of the fid, and it doesn't matter if the angles are parallel. Alright, so we'll stuff the taper in as far as we can into the fid. At this point you're going to run a couple of turns of tape upward and then downward over the fid so you have a nice strong connection to the fid. Next we're going to locate that first mark that is 42 inches from the end of the tail. That's where we're going to put this thimble, and remember that we made another mark at the end of the thimble. That's right here, and everything looks good. Don't forget to put the hardware on first, because once the rope is on the thimble, it's going to be too fat and you won't be able to get the hardware on. This splice is going to be at the top of the V-swing, so we're going to need an anchor shackle there to go onto the forged eye bolt that is going through the tree trunk. Be sure that the two thimble marks are equidistant from the throat of the thimble. Then take your fid and insert it at the base of the thimble. You want to get the rope as tight around the thimble as you can. And now we're going to do our second pass. Each pass needs to go through the middle of the rope with 12 strands on each side of the fid, or 6 pairs on each side of the fid. Make sure that you don't interrupt the twin carriers. Or in other words, insert the fid between 2 pairs, don't split a pair of strands. You'll come through it like so, and then at the next mark, you'll pass all the way through a third time. Here's where it's going to enter for its final berry. You want to make sure that the whole process is very symmetrical and the rope is not twisted. Then you're going to enter into the middle of the rope and work the fid down through until you get to the exit point. Bring the fid through and be sure that all 3 of your stabilized taped points have exited the center of the rope, because those all have to be removed. Then take all the tape off the fid. Then, starting up at the thimble, you're going to stretch everything down over the berry so that the tapered tail gets sucked into the middle of the rope. Now you have 2 ends. One has a locking brummel with a rigging ring where the swing seat is going to be attached. The other, your triple tuck eye splice, will be at the top where the eye bolt is going to be. Now you might see other splicing instructions that suggest that you stabilize the entry point of the berry with hand stitching. That's especially important if you are using this splice as a sling or throwing the spliced rope into the back of a truck frequently, and where the tail could get pulled out if it gets stuck on something. In the case of a tree swing, you don't need to stitch the entry point of the berry, because once you install this rope in the tree, there is going to be constant weight on it. That's either going to be the weight of the riders or the weight of the swing itself, so that the tail is always going to be under pressure and the tail can't get pulled out. Just be sure to take care of the rope from the time you finish your splice until you get up into the tree. A solid knowledge of tree risk and tree biology is needed to choose the right limb or trees to anchor a safe tree swing. If you have any doubts about your abilities in this area, contact a certified arborist in your area to consult with you on tree possibilities in your yard. You can do a zip code search for certified arborists in your area by going to www.treesaregood.org. It will take a bit of trigonometry to figure out the desired length of each arm of a V-swing. Some rules of thumb are that you do not want to anchor the swing more than 1/3 of the way up the tree. Also, the angle from the tree trunk under the anchor bolt to the rope should be 35 to 40 degrees, so that the predominant vector of force is downward instead of toward the other anchor tree. If the angle is too great, or either anchor tree is too springy, then the inward force exerted on the trees by the rider could make the swing seat bottom out and scrape on the ground. Now a word about how to determine the length of unspliced rope you'll need to get a doubly spliced rope that is exactly the desired finished length. There are a number of factors that add to or subtract from the length. For example, the rope has some stretch to it, and the hardware will lengthen the effective length of the rope by a number of inches as well. For example, let's say that you want a doubly spliced rope to have a finished length of exactly 20 feet. You will need an extra 30 inches for the tail of the locking brummel, and an extra 42 inches for the tail of the triple tuck eye splice. In all splices, the buried tail shortens the length of the rope because it makes that section of the rope fatter. For a locking brummel bury, you have to add 5 inches of rope, and for a triple tuck eye splice, you have to add 7 inches of rope to negate the shortening caused by the bury. You also have to add the length of the thimble to the required tail length. If you are using the same type of thimbles that I am, that will be 3 inches per splice. Similarly, the pear-shaped quick links, rigging ring, and anchor shackles together occupy about 5.5 inches of length that needs to be subtracted from the rope length. Finally, there is stretch of about 1% in the rope at working load limit that needs to be subtracted from the final rope length. 1% of 20 feet is 2.5 inches. So to create a doubly spliced rope with a 20-foot finished length, you will need to start with a 26-foot 10-inch piece of rope. Don't be surprised if your swing seat sits about a foot high before you set the splices in your system. No matter how well you milk the bury by hand to get the tapered tail of the rope back into the center of the rope, the splice will still need a one-time stretching with adult weight on it before you adjust the final height of the swing seat. I hope this video has given you a sense of the engineering that goes into a good quality custom spliced tree swing, and if you decide to make your own swing, I hope this video has given you much of the knowledge you'll need to successfully complete the project.